Hi, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to today's Advisicon Academy training. My name is Leslie Pfau. I'm the Director of Marketing here at Advisicon. We are a group of authors, teachers, consultants, and technologists offering training in Microsoft technologies, project management, and methodology. With attending any of our training sessions, we offer PDUs as we are a registered education provider with the Project Management Institute. At the close of today's session, I'll give you some instructions on how to claim your PDUs and how to contact Advisicon for any questions you may have. Now, before we get started, I'd like to go over a few things so you know how to participate in today's event. Please review the control panel that should be on the top right of your screen. The audience is muted during the session, so in order to ask questions, you'll have to submit them in the questions window of the control panel. This webinar will be recorded and uploaded to the Advisicon YouTube channel for those who could not attend today's session live. Please note that any questions or comments submitted will not display in the recording, nor will any of your personal information be shared. It is now my pleasure to introduce today's instructor, Advisicon's President, Tim Runcie. And without further ado, I'll hand this presentation over so we can get started.
Thanks, Leslie. Welcome, everyone, to Webinar Wednesday. Very glad to have you here today as we continue our discussion around the future of project, how to get prepared, and the project management technologies that are coming out for folks to use. So digging in here, this is kind of the important part of where things are going, and it's amazing being able to be on the inside track as, of course, Advisicon gets to work on kind of the future releases, and then hearing lots of feedback from our customers, our audience, people like you, in terms of really what is working, what doesn't work. And so we kind of call this the age of the customer, right? The idea that there is an interface, there's a UX or a UI experience around project management, program management, portfolio management technologies. So today we're going to go through, talk a little bit about the direction of Project PPM. We're also going to talk about some of the wider pieces because it isn't just a single tool for scheduling technology anymore. It's really looking at a broader picture. And then some of the future elements that are coming or are here behind the scenes for both cloud or even some of the infrastructure that we're seeing on premise. And then you'll see here, I'll talk a little bit about Agile and KAIZALA, which I'm getting lots of questions about that just was released. We'll talk about that as well in terms of how does that fit as a project management tool suite. And then, of course, the Dynamics Horizon, which is really about opening up the back end and providing an integration with ERP systems, accounting, CRM, project management, scheduling, resource management, field service crews. There's a lot going on here. So without further ado, let me kind of take you right into the project technology future and some of the elements to consider. So first off, I want to encourage people that as you get started working in and understanding some of the bigger picture, is that, you know, we have these platforms, whether you're on a relational database and you've got some sort of an interface, whether it's Microsoft or non-Microsoft. In many cases, you're looking at the data. You're actually looking at things that are woven together. You'll see here on the slide that I'm showing right now, it talks about task fabric, and that's an important element to understand, is that task fabric, meaning the fabric of tasks, getting things done, is woven throughout the entire Microsoft experience. Now, you may be using external products or external tools, and you're going to find that that task fabric, as part of the intent that Microsoft has, is to ensure that you can begin weaving those in. So we'll talk about some tools that are out there that Microsoft has just recently released that says, you know, we don't care where you're doing some of your work, let your people stay where they're productive, but we're going to weave that into places that you need. You know, some customers are working in Visual Studio or Team Foundation Server or Jira, or they might be using version 1 or Rally, and there's kind of these flavors of historical, old, and new. But the idea is that data is data, and what we want to do is touch that data once. So as we look at the Project PPM stack, and you look at some things here, I've got a little slide there that says, cool new tools here. Today I'll talk about one that just surfaced. It's actually been kind of discussed around, but the intent of providing better collaboration platforms and tools with folks. Now, before I dig too deeply, I want to kind of remind everyone that there are layers to what we do, from project, program, and portfolio management to work management and task management. So understand that these are different parts of the spectrum, right? When we look at task management, it's all the things that we need to get done. Oh, hey, I've got a kickoff meeting. I better get donuts and coffee, and I need to make sure that I send out an email. We might not put that in a Microsoft project schedule, way too laborious. But the idea is that there's tasks, and then we work into bigger things that says, hey, I need to kind of get all the things done for the meeting. And so there are different tools for the job. And this is the nice part about this, is that if you think about the complexity factor of the project management technologies of the past, is that it took a lot of learning becoming an expert or a master. I've got some scars here on my forehead from, banging my head on the monitor, trying to figure out, what did they do, or why does that work this way, or wish this would work better. But we're finding that as we talk about a little bit more of an Agile-esque approach, is that people can get in, get out, and get back to work. But there are layers to these, and this is important, because it is not just one-stop shop in a single technology. It's really weaving that task fabric, that resource assignment, the accountability, the metrics fabric together. So without digging too much deeper, if you haven't had a chance to start moving from either, if you're working with Skype or you're working with other instant messages, one of the things that's popped up is Teams. And I've got here listed a screenshot of something called Shifts, Microsoft Shifts, kind of embedded directly inside of a team environment, so you can kind of add these apps. But to give you a size and a scope, if we talk about 30 to 32 million, 35 million users using Project Desktop, Project Online, we look at Planner, which is also owned by the Microsoft product team, and they released this to help people do task management. Well, Teams now actually, if you look at the count of how many people are using Planner embedded in a Teams environment, we're talking about 5 times the difference. So there are 5 times more people using Planner or leveraging Teams than they're working necessarily just in Microsoft Project. So in the big scheme of things, we talk about that collaboration portal where before you had to go to either a file share or you set up a SharePoint site. A lot of those are kind of moving behind the scenes so that you have some functionality. And you'll be able to add these tabs into your team environment, including Planner, Shifts, and we'll see a few other things here as well. So as you know, of course, collaboration is not just about project management, building a schedule, right? It's nice to know that you can do a risk management tool and build a Microsoft project schedule and do earned value and do forecasting and modeling, and doesn't take that out. But what do project managers, program managers, and portfolio managers do? So many times they're communicating. They're trying to understand, what do I need to wrestle with? And I need to help my team be productive by removing roadblocks. So the idea of collaboration is really kind of important. And when you don't, you can get into some interesting scenarios. So whether you're doing communication or sharing files or pictures, or perhaps even just taking receipts that are associated to cost around a task, how do we keep track of those and address those issues, risks, budgets, or at least the burn down of getting work done? So I'm going to talk about a new tool that just kind of emerged. If you haven't seen this, it's called KAIZALA. And it came out of the Microsoft Garage. And so think of it like skunkworks, right? You've got these projects that are trying to release something that says, hey, can we create innovation? Let's try to do some of these R&D type projects. And when it really sticks, it sticks well. So if you haven't seen this, I'll show a couple slides and a couple elements that go with here. But the idea is to connect with people inside or outside of your organization with just a phone number. Right now, you have to log in. You've got an email address. You create an Active Directory account. We can come in and manage securities and permissions. Well, if we can take and extend the collaboration portal that allows you to do things similar that you might find in Slack or Google Hangouts or Facebook Messenger, these systems really weren't designed for what we call corporate productivity or work productivity. This one is geared specifically around that. And it's available in iOS and Android as a mobile app solution. So basically, it's targeted for folks that say, look, maybe you're not using Teams. Maybe you're in a project management world where you've got a 2G, or you're overseas, you're in an area that maybe it's just kind of a remote environment working, and I don't have the rigor of having all these. Well, I still need that collaborative environment. I need to share videos and pictures, and I need to have tasks and to-dos. I need to spin up meetings and do calls, all the things that we find in a little bit more of a formal corporate culture, just coming down at one particular level. And again, in terms of making sure data is secure, this is one of the reasons that cloud has been so productive for people, whether it's Microsoft Cloud or others, is that there's a much more higher level of rigor. So if we look at KAIZALA in terms of the ability of being secure, there's I'll talk a little bit more about that, but the intent is that, yeah, absolutely, HIPAA compliant, ISO compliance. There's elements that says we can secure your data, but let you have a little bit more of a collaborative environment to work with. And again, free trial or $1.51 US a month sometimes may be right space for different size organizations. So again, you can share documents, pictures, videos. You could talk to people. Again, just need a single phone number. Just need to connect and bring people in. And then having that group security where I can share information or decide what people can see and manage. Spin it up again, looking at that whole GDPR, right? So if you're in the EU, and you're looking at making sure that you can remove or clean up data, these are all elements that provide a level of rigor. Well, that's great, because as a project manager, you might have resources in different locations. You're not all co-located in the same place, and so be able to manage, clean up, or control that is hugely important. And so still having some of this flexibility is going to be worthwhile. In fact, what's interesting about this is that there are announcements coming out about, hey, here's what's new or what's coming out. There's even some pre-release information that kind of snuck out there around how do you stay in tune with what are the new changes to Microsoft Project or perhaps to Dynamics. And I've got a picture up here where this actually has a live URL, and it was announced at one of the conferences, and they had to go and retroactively yank these out. So Microsoft is actively working to ensure that nothing is commented or put out there too soon as they're continuing to prepare some of the release cycle, which you'll find a little bit more within the next 6 to 9 months. We're going to see some of these technologies that are ready to emerge, but they want to make sure that people are in place. So if you're wanting to stay on top of, hey, what's happening with project or teams, or where in the world is KAIZALA, there's different places you can go to learn that. So I put a few here on the screen for you to look at, but the idea is that you can always go to our blog. We're posting and talking about what we're able to talk about. Our YouTube channel, we certainly have videos and content going out there. And if you're here today at Webinar Wednesday, as you know, every other Wednesday, basically, we're kind of helping to share, communicate our excitement about things that may make your life much more productive, especially as we look at the future of project technology. If you want to go to the Microsoft environment, basically they have a tech community, and so the URL is almost exactly the same, but it's a letter to our project community, Q&A on the future vision of project. Howard Crow has put a lot of good content out there, and they even have some videos that are trying to make sure that are available from the project team, kind of moving it out there. So remember, project and dynamics can begin to merge in a sense, if you will. The teams are working collaboratively together. They're on the same platform. I'll talk about that more and what that means in a project management sense. So as you know, time has kind of continued to move forward. So we looked at some of the improved enhancements that have been released. For those of you in the Agile community who really like the planner boards and the ability to have that, of course, Microsoft Project, in fact, I'll just bring it up right now. Project, of course, if you come in, if you're in the Project Pro for Office 365, you can kind of build your Agile, your sprints. But if you really want to get into that Kanban-esque or that sprint board, you can just go right out here, jump in, and start managing things just like you do in Planner. So I can move things between our backlog. I can move things directly. I've got some flexibility there. And again, this has been out for a while, but a lot of people are not aware of, hey, maybe I'm just looking at not sprints. I'm trying to keep track of whether things are done or not done. But using a task in a Gantt chart like a card, you can kind of move these features or these activities that need to be done and keeping track of it. So again, from an Agile-esque, it's a database, right? We have a new interface that allows us to work with our information. Again, as we go forward, project being able to support 30,000 projects in a project online environment. So if you're getting the current licensing, you can use the enterprise, or you can just carry it down to the desktop, but there's a lot more power that's going to be pulled together. As we look at things called like the project home, which let me bring this up here so you can see, is for project managers. When you come in, that by the way, here's my KAIZALA site, so products.office.com, EN, business and Microsoft KAIZALA. We talked about Planner just a second ago, getting your Planner hub, whether you're embedding it in a team or not. But the home page, right, for PMs who don't want to jump to this busy project center where I have to scroll through or filter through a bunch of different views to see a red, yellow, green indicator to actually drill to my project, just like your mobile solution, you can come in here very much quickly having something then speed dial, or if you have your favorites pinned up at the top, recent activities that you can work on. And of course, Microsoft continues to release some of the updates. You'll see something about roadmaps. So the intent is to continue to equip project program portfolio managers or the business to have better flexibility, collaboration, insights, and of course, connecting the data to Power BI or connecting it to reporting components that you have. So this innovation isn't just embedded in Microsoft Project anymore. It's really designed to leverage elements that go together. Now remember, if you're working in Project Server on-premise, there's nothing wrong with SharePoint, nothing wrong with some workflow or SharePoint Designer workflows. You've got Visio you can embed in your environment. You can hook it to data and have dynamic updates. But as people begin moving more and more to Office 365 or to the online collaborative experience, this is where Microsoft To Do or Visual Studio, Team Foundation Server used to be in a difference between the two. Now it's just called Azure DevOps. And we look at Power Apps, things that are designed to let not a developer build automation or workflow, but let the program manager, the business analyst, jump in and really start taking advantage of simplicity. We're going to have some definite how-to training sessions on just how to take advantage of flow and some of the Power App flexibility. But again, remember from the project perspective, the periodic table of Office 365 is that when you have one license or you're in, you get a lot more capabilities that are designed to really help you with your project management tool belt that says, hey, maybe I do need to kind of do a little bit of planner, or maybe I want to work specifically connecting my Yammer or my Microsoft Teams, or I want to actually start creating Stream from a video perspective, but I want to link that right to learning and learning content that I'm linking directly to my Teams hub so that when people come in, they can quickly find information. So data can be shared and moved directly, and certainly with Microsoft Project, that's very helpful. So in Project itself, again, the idea is to continue to grow, adding those Agile features. And I do need to be very careful. I can't say all the things that are coming in the new modern Project, but what I will tell you is that the intent is really to remove some of the complexity, really allow people to quickly get in and make changes and visualizations and do it from a mobile experience or an online experience versus necessarily having to go to that desktop. And so as we know that there's a lot of depth there, again, the end users in many cases don't always need the bells and whistles. And so being able to push and pull your schedules into Power BI or derived analytics so you can do predictive forecasting is all part of that experience. And of course, in Project, we know we can jump in and certainly go in if you want to go over and say, hey, I want to look at my report information. And you can pop into your dashboards and do upcoming tasks. What's great about this is that if you're starting to work or manage your details, is that you can come in and see what's happening here. But again, you've got the reporting capabilities like having your pivot table directly embedded directly in that information. So whether I'm looking at upcoming projects or a snapshot overview, as I click on these, I've got this nice ability to manage this directly. But even so, some people are saying, why don't we just build a standard report, say in Power BI, and I just want to read my data. I just want to publish it in a way that's a little bit more conducive versus having to PDF and send it to Excel or PDF and send it to somebody or export my data. We can actually work with that flexibility. Now, continuing that journey, and this is kind of the upcoming things that we want to look at, I wanted to just kind of make sure people understand that Project as a technology has a new home. And what Microsoft continues to do is improve the innovation of the back end, right? So most of us could care less about, you know, who wants to install Project or Project Server. We just want to get in and use the application. But it's important for security. It's important for workflow or the ability to have connected systems in terms of a back end. And so if you're moving to an Office 365 environment or Project Online, that powerful blend just says, look, while somebody else is maintaining the patching and the carrying and feeding of this, what we want to do is standardize, just like any project control center or project management office that just says, let's standardize on the data. Let's standardize on the service and how that works. And so Dynamics and Project have come together to really become one team. So the power of Microsoft Project is folded into the ability of Dynamics to have contracts, accounting environment, a CRM, for example. If you're starting a proposal, you don't even have to start in Project. We can kind of move and see these going back and forth. And what our team is actually very excited about is that in the areas that we look and say there's some gaps, perhaps maybe in some resource management or functionality, is that with the CDS 2.0, this new platform that we can work on, we can actually build automation, or we can actually build very quick visuals much faster than we could do it monolithically on the old environment. So in terms of that marriage of project and Dynamics together, the power of that project program and portfolio capability, including Microsoft Project, is really designed to push in and then begin to pull out things like sales, marketing, finance, customer service, operations. If you deal with crews that are being scheduled to do maintenance or work, again, these modules are now on the same platform. And so the data in terms of talking about it is all in one place. So really that platform code base makes it much easier to grow and scale. It just is going to be a little bit of a learning curve for people who want to take a little bit differently or go deeply. Where before we had to go to 3 different tools to get our data, now it's on that same system. And the visualization, things like you're going to see here, where you're going to see the replacement of what's called project service automation, where Microsoft Project is now going to replace the scheduling engine, right? The ability to see resource utilization and look at quick assignment, quick updates, or even this view right now of the new version of Project. And by the way, this was posted out by Microsoft a while back saying, hey, as we start lining out the visualization, is that the new version of Project is going to look very simple, very easy to use. And you can switch between lists and boards and Kanban, and I want a Gantt chart, but I want to make sure people can get in, get out, and have collaboration, just like you're getting in Teams now in your environment. So the power of Project is starting to share some of that scheduling technology, but also inherit things that the product team built, several years back as they began working with Planner. And so that ease of use is going to be important. So in terms of newly released PPM technology, we talk about some of those landing pages, new elements there. I showed you a little bit about, hey, I can quickly spin up a new roadmap, or I can spin up a new project, or I've got my pinned environment. And if you haven't seen roadmap yet, the idea of this is really compelling. Even though this product is actually very simple, it comes with your Microsoft license today. So when you buy a Microsoft Project license, Project Pro, Professional or Premium, you get roadmap. And the idea is that I can pull data from different servers, different tenants into an environment, different schedules, but I can also go and get Azure DevOps. Or for those of you that are using Team Foundation servers, that is, I can pull information about epics, sprints. I'm looking at tasks or risks. I can pull them in here and share this information into a single view. At some point, you're going to see Jira up here. You're going to see other external APIs where you're going to be able to drop those in. And it's just showcasing this right now. In fact, let me just pop into it right here. If I jump in, here's my active roadmap. And again, if this is, say, a FY19 strategic plan, the idea is that if I want to add a row, it just wants to know who am I? And I might say this is important launch information. Whoops, hit tab too soon. Launch, important launch, there we go. And wants to know who I am because it's important where I actually have access to. So if I just put in Tim Runcie, it's going to start looking for if I'm actually and do have permission to bring this up. And as it'll draw through here, it'll let me know what I would actually have the ability to visualize. So whether I want to connect to a project, or let me kind of zoom this for you right now, is that we can see, is it project online? Do I want to connect to Azure boards? We're going to continue to see lists grow, especially with non-Microsoft products, which is kind of cool. Is that, hey, look, one-stop shop, I get a big roadmap picture, and then if I need to actually add some of my own data elements, I can do that. If you haven't had a chance to play with this, I really encourage people go to User Voice. There's a website for that, but even from inside a project here, if I open up project right now and I want to go to feedback, I can actually tell them things that I want. I have suggestions, and I can use User Voice to communicate that. that's really big with Power BI and some of the other products that are out there, is just tell the tech team, the dev teams directly what you're looking for or improvements or enhancements. And that really makes it easy for them to say, hey, look, I don't have to run it through a gold partner or through an MVP like myself or Advisicon. I can actually begin to have that dialogue. And of course, we might help cull or collate some of that feedback, but the idea is that, you know, it is really a connected environment. So if we think in terms of really the ability of project, Microsoft Project in a sense, being connected with multiple systems and having this roadmap, that purpose is really visibility, right? We want to look across multiple environments, multiple tenants. I actually want to bring multiple systems together and have a foundation that uses flow to automate data updates between things without the end user having to build anything. Right, the idea that whether it's Agile or Waterfall or you're in any methodology, Prince2, Scrum or Fall or sprinting down the waterfall, whatever that may be, is that we really have that, and centralizing your data won't matter. Okay, I know I've got about a couple seconds, but Leslie, did you have any posted questions?
We actually do.
Of course, yeah, let's just stop here. I usually find things that sometimes we haven't even thought about, so go ahead.
I have a couple. I'll try to get through them. And remember, if we don't, you can always ask us at contact advisicon.com. So from John asks, how do you get to roadmap or launch it?
Great question. So I know a lot of times playing around here, you'll see this. And by the way, we have a couple videos out there. Let me bring up projects. So again, if you are in Project Online, this is where you're going to get roadmap for. This is where it's designed. So if you're using an older version, say anything previous, you know, than Project Pro for Office 365, you're not going to get roadmap, which is a great question. Again, this is part of the new licensing model. And then when you launch Project, or you just come into, let's say, your landing page, and you come in here through the panel, you'll click on Project, it's going to take you right to this page right here. This is kind of our landing, or what we call Project Home. And the idea is right up at the very top here, you'll click on Create New, Roadmap or Project. And so, okay, I can spin up a Microsoft Project schedule, or I can do this. Now, this is through the browser, right? So that's how you'll make that work, especially if you're on the current licensing model. What I really have found useful, especially in both the for-profit space and the nonprofit space, is that you might have organizations that may not have a lot of formal PM, project management or standards, or maybe you're just a couple people in an office, but you have the full richness of an enterprise environment without having to do that full install. And then you can do these quick roadmaps to communicate with your stakeholders or your board of directors to kind of bring those pieces directly into a view. Great question.
Great. Okay.
Leslie, got another one?
Yep, one more. So Dave asks, will KAIZALA users be able to communicate with Teams users? Will there be a connection between them, or will they be totally separate?
So that's a great question. And part of this is that KAIZALA is so new. I think we're all kind of going, wow, Microsoft Garage just released something out there. So again, remember, we're on that platform. So talk about connecting or sharing information. So I'm going to be very careful about what I say, what you can or can't do. But the intent is, if you think about this, there are really, in many cases, there are two competing products, right? We have Teams and we have KAIZALA. Some of the platform in terms of the Microsoft structure are exactly the same. So I know that you're going to be able to look at, if it's a secure environment, it's going to be back on the Microsoft backend. You can use Flow, you can move information forward, but I don't have the answer for that. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to actually take that as an action item to go out and say, hey, is there going to be a simple tab, right? For example, let me bring up Teams here, and I'll just show you how easy this is. I go into Teams and go, hey, I want to add something here. I'm going to click on Add a New Tab. And so if I want to add a tab for either a channel or I spin up a team here, what I can do is I can come in. And remember, we talked about this, which is I want to use Microsoft Forms, or I want to bring in a SharePoint page, and I want to have a list inside of here. Here's Planner. And if I just type in KAI, nope, no KAIZALA yet. So I'd be looking for is, what are we synchronizing? Most of the time behind the scenes is you're going to find SharePoint, and that's the key connected point, is that SharePoint is really, in many cases, we look at lists, links, or activities, is that some of the same infrastructure that we have in independent product is actually behind these portals. So KAIZALA being a portal, a business portal, and the same goes for the Microsoft Teams. So I'm going to maybe do a little blog posting on that, maybe a little bit more detail, so that's a great question. Leslie, how about one more question, and then we'll kind of wrap.
All right, well, this is back with KAIZALA again, and you may have kind of answered it, but it says it seems to be for friends and family and or work. Can you explain a little more of Microsoft's vision for it?
So what's funny is that the conversation around KAIZALA really spun up, and there's if you look in terms of what is the purpose, right? Really, what is the core purpose of this tool? So what Microsoft recognized is that a lot of organizations are not going to move to Office 365. Yet what they wanted to be able to do is take their extended technology that says, hey, look, we still have task management, work management. I need to have verbal conversations. I want to be able to extend that out. So the idea of, and I hate to use the word, no one left behind. This is not a Bush era program for education, but this really is saying Microsoft wants to make sure that no one is not afforded the opportunity to collaborate, get work done, tasks done, schedule jobs, make payments, have a secure way to get on and do a phone call. And so looking at not just the more corporate model, but looking at people doing business in, say, third world countries. So again, I think you're going to see some of this as you spin this up where you don't have a 3G, 4G, or 5G network. This is designed to work on a 2G network, right? It still has that ability to be very battle hardened, get it out there, get that collaboration, but keep it secure. So yes, friends, family, very easy to do. But guess what? A project's a project, whether you're doing it as a family reunion, as you're doing your high school reunion, or if you're going to work in terms of just internal projects with people that you're collaborating with, your contractors, the idea is that you just need a phone number. And so conceptually around the same basic principles of managing, tracking, addressing issues, risks, and tasks and deliverables is part of that technology stack. So the broader intent is to make sure people get on the stack, Microsoft stack, get on the platform, give them a vehicle through a mobile device. Forget about the laptops, right, where they can actually do some of the same things that we're seeing it now. So what remains to be defined is what or who will win, eventually in the future, because as you see, sometimes Microsoft will provide Skype, and then they'll spin up Teams, and they're working today in parallel, but at some point, one might be subsumed under the other. Since I don't run Microsoft and I don't own it, I can't speak to that. And these are questions that we get to go back and have with the engineering teams about what's the intent and direction. But I love that you asked, and I think that's really important, the fact that if you think about project management, task or work management, those three layers, is that there are many different tools that might be better suited than jamming everything into a project schedule. But yet you still need to communicate and collaborate. All right. Well, thank you very much. If you have more questions, as you guys know, there is certainly opportunity to reach out to us anytime. But the idea of that innovation around the technology stack is going to continue to improve. The barrier of technology is going to lower in terms of how quickly you can get in, get out, and get back to work. And then the idea of connecting multiple environments or multiple systems together is helpful. And again, online is where these capabilities are going to be found. That's kind of the direction that Microsoft has moved. And as you can see, really using mobile devices, that's really important, because in some cases, it's almost a 3-to-1 ratio, 4-to-1 ratio of mobile devices versus computers today. So working in the hands of what people are doing now. So again, we love Project, we love SharePoint, we do a lot of application development and integration, but sometimes you just need to ask a question. So reach out to me, or as Leslie said, to contact@advisicon.com. Happy to answer, again, as evangelist of project management and technology. We love to keep you guys in the know as much as we can. So Leslie, let me hand it back to you, but again, thank you for the time to be able to share this with you today.
Yep, thank you everyone for attending today's webinar. And as Tim mentioned, we welcome your questions and your feedback. So again, that email address is contact@advisicon.com. Once you exit today's webinar, you'll receive a survey on the presentation. You'll need to complete and submit the survey to receive your PDUs. From there, you'll receive a follow-up email within 2 business days with your PDU information. If you're watching this recording on YouTube or another social media platform, please be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future uploads. On behalf of Advisicon, Tim, and myself, thank you for joining us today, and we hope to see you participate in future webinars. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.